note that we had a passing during the summer. Rose Reeder from Catskill Catering passed away, and I'd like to offer our condolences to Frank, her husband, and the family. It was sudden, and she will be missed. I would also like to acknowledge our sponsors for this breakfast presentation: Ulster Savings, the Mid-Hudson Federal Credit Union, Rondout Savings, Sawyer Savings, a lot of banks, Sally Ackerman. Steve Ackerman is here. Steve, raise your hand. Where are you? There you are. Ulster County Community College, the Media 721 facility where we're at right now, and Catskill Catering. So for that, I'd like to offer a thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you very much. That was a very weak applause. You want to hope that when you get up here, you get better applause than that. This summer has been very interesting, very full. A lot of wonderful things have happened. A lot of not so wonderful things have happened. We have a lot of new faces in the crowd, which is always wonderful. And to those folks, I will tell you that these breakfasts happen monthly. They are, for the most part, an educational experience. We try and bring to you some of the most dynamic speakers from inside and outside the Hudson Valley, speaking on topics concerning business people, entrepreneurship, technology, and about your companies as well. And we're very fortunate this morning to have Marty Byrne here this morning from RPI. Marty, are you still in the room, or are you out there chatting? There he is back there. I can't see with the light. You'll find out. And it's these types of speakers and these types of presentations that keeps this forum current, alive, and very popular. We have some nice guests this morning. Clayton Besh from NYSTAR is here. I'd also like to recognize our regional business development directors representing Manhattan, Brooklyn, Marty Sapoznik, and representing the lower Hudson Valley part of our region, Alan Kahn, and representing Connecticut and points east, Steve Young. So if you could just put your hands up so people know who you are. And if anybody has any questions as to how you might get engaged with the Hudson Valley Center for Innovation, these folks will be available for questions, answers, and we would be appreciative if you would. It's been a very interesting time, as I said, because we've got a lot of new companies. We've got a lot of new technologies. We've got a lot of new opportunities. And with opportunities comes economic development, comes growth, towards regional growth, and the recognition that we feel the Hudson Valley deserves as a community. Net Zero, Todd and Kevin will be presenting here this morning, and they've been doing a phenomenal job in growing their company, and we're happy to have them here. We're happy to have them as HVCFI affiliates, and I think you'll be thrilled to hear what they're involved in as well. So getting started here this morning, this never works. All right, so there you go. Okay. We talk a great deal about funding. I would say probably 99.9% of the companies that approach the Hudson Valley Center for Innovation need money. And as we all know, funding has been an issue. Let's just call it an issue. And the current debate amongst venture capital practitioners and others in the investor community on what to make of the current boomlet in seed stage deal making has yielded some interesting insights into the past, future, and the overall health of the venture industry. The seed boom versus bubble, that discussion is a very healthy one. Again, most of our companies are considered earlier stage, emerging. Funding is critical, but as you'll hear during this presentation, there's hope. There's some new trends starting that have already begun, starting here in the Hudson Valley, which hopefully we will help catalyze into new types of thinking and investment. As in any debate over an emerging trend, one of the factors that bears close examination is whether or not the underlying issues are fleeting and cyclical, or whether they're deep and structural changes afoot that would support a wholesale shift in how industry functions. That sea change in venture capital is underway and is hardly news. Versions of this argument have been made with regularity for the last couple of years. Oh, I'm surprised this works. The venture capital community at large has passed an important milestone that may mark the end of one era and the beginning of another. This dividing line in history was revealed this summer in the latest report from the National Venture Capital Association, which showed that 10-year returns on venture capital investments had turned negative at the end of 2009 and nosedived during the first quarter of 2010. Let me translate what that might sound like insider mumbo jumbo. Venture capital, investing, the lifeblood of the innovation economy, has become a risky bet. In the game of venture capital, the 10-year return on investments is one of the closely watched benchmarks on performance. Now, everyone can have a bad year, but for the quarter ending March 2010, the return on investment to venture capital funds nationwide is a negative 3.9%. So how's the world changed? The larger problems plaguing the venture industry are really about how the world has changed since the dot-com bust. The venture industry's financial model was built on having a significant number of their portfolio companies hold initial public offerings of stock. Venture firms depend on windfalls from these IPOs to overcome failed investments and to deliver healthy returns to investors. But except for a couple of years, the IPO market has been comatose. It's literally dried up. VCs were hoping against hope that this year might finally be the year that the IPO made a comeback. But once again, that hasn't happened. According to the Renaissance Capital Group, the Bay Area has 9 venture-backed companies go public this year. That's up from 2 last year. The most notable was Tesla Motors, the electric car maker, and that represented a really, really high risk. Now, there are other companies, Facebook being one, that have pulled their IPOs. They don't need the money. So what do? So we now are faced with a new set of circumstance where IPO is not what's being touted right now. Companies are surviving on what they have, on their organic and internal growth, and it becomes a dilemma of, I won't say biblical proportions, but to the investor community, it is significant. So how gloomy is this picture? According to a venture capital survey, here we go, 90% of venture capitalists who responded expect their industry to contract through 2015. The trend is well underway. While firms have not started collapsing en masse, they have been quietly shrinking. The number of principals at U.S. venture firms fell from 8,892 in 2007 to 6,828 in 2008. As firms raise smaller funds, they need fewer people to invest. Some will argue that at least in the area of web startups, companies can be launched on the cheap, and growing numbers of angel investors, those wealthy individuals who invest at the earliest stages, are stepping in to give these companies a boost. And we have some angel investors here in the room this morning, and perhaps when we're done, we can we can get some comment. But it's not just fewer startups. When companies don't go public, they don't generate the same number of jobs in their later stages. The cash raised from an IPO usually triggers an explosion in hiring. The real job creation starts far down the road after they go public. Instead of going public, the companies that do show potential now get gobbled up by the Googles and Facebooks of the world, and at the same time, giants like HP, Oracle, Intel, Cisco continue their acquisitions of larger tech companies, a consolidation trend that hurts job growth. So what do? There is a sea change underway. While there exists a good deal of overlap on key points behind the arguments, let me weigh in with a few bullet points that offer support for my view that the seed micro VC trend we're seeing is indeed a boom that will continue to reshape the venture industry for years to come. Angels and seed funds are more sophisticated now than ever. The current inactive angel investor appears quite a bit different from what we saw during the 96 to 2000 time period. In short, fewer non-tech, high net worth individuals who made their fortunes in shopping centers or tanning salons, and more investors that came from as opposed to more investors that came from the tech world, are now getting involved in earlier stage companies. The institutionalization of seed funds means that smarter people are getting involved, more experienced, not necessarily smarter, more experienced people are getting involved in seed funds, becoming institutionalized. Therefore, the monies that are invested perhaps are being invested smarter, are being invested more cautiously, considering the risk factors, sorting out so that we don't run into the same situation now that we did during the dot-com bust. Capital efficiency. As everyone has heard, the cost to develop, build, and launch a technology startup has fallen dramatically over the past decade. This is very important, so pay attention. By some estimates, the cost to produce, design, develop, test, launch, and scale a basic e-commerce application has fallen by 50% every 2 years since 1995. This is significant and not reserved for only internet and software companies. The impact, let me move that down. The impact from a financing perspective is equally dramatic. A decade ago, it might have required $5 to $10 million in investment capital to take a company to the point that it can be today with less than 1/10 of that amount of capital. The obvious consequence is that it takes less capital to launch a startup. In many cases, it also takes less capital to sustain one, at least for this period of time. So the current trend of capital efficiency means startups get farther with less capital, negating the need for big capital raises that large established funds typically need to justify their fund. Succeed or fail, quickly and cheaply. Benchmark Capital partner Andy Ratcliffe liked to say that startups needed to fail fast and cheap. His point was to emphasize that startups will make numerous mistakes in their development, but to make those mistakes quickly, as cheaply as possible, and to pivot to another approach or product or market that has a better chance of being successful. Failure's tough enough. A long, drawn-out, and expensive failure is excruciating. The emerging cachet of new seed and microfunds. One clear shift that I've seen is how there is a new crop of seed stage investment firms that are being perceived in the marketplace and, more tellingly, by the founders and management teams at promising young companies. Clearly, for many emerging companies, in the broad Web 2.0 sphere, being aligned with a younger firm is being highly prized. So there's a shift going on in how they are structured as well. Many storied firms need to reevaluate, rebrand in order to be relevant in early stage. The mindset, and we know this from personal experience, the mindset of traditional venture capital has not been towards early stage, seed stage investments. The risk factors alone would scare most VCs to death. Secondly, we also know that earlier stage companies need management guidance and assistance on a continual and regular basis, which is why we exist. But that investment and that availability of talent has been few and far between. So by reshaping and reevaluating, and I'm not sure that all of the traditional VC funds can accomplish this. The mindsets are very different. The outcomes, the risk factors are very different, but the rewards and potential for significant opportunity are very dramatic. And we're not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that large venture firms won't go away. Sure, the industry is shrinking, nothing earth-shattering there, so is everything. There'll be a net reduction in the number of active venture firms, and on balance sheets, assets under management will decline. This is part of a maturing winnowing cycle that, as indicated earlier, has been going on for almost a decade. Startups usually fail quickly. Venture firms are 10-year vehicles, so things are not so brisk. Moreover, one or two well-timed exits can turn things around for a venture firm that looked doomed. Hopefully we have one of those here today. In summation, you're welcome, there are fundamental changes at work in the venture industry, which give significant and lasting advantages to seed and micro funds that can exploit this market opportunity. This boom in seed and micro VC activity is not so much a boom as it is a seismic shift in how technology companies will be founded and funded for the foreseeable future. Similarly, capital efficiency and business model innovations are not trends that will go away or be supplanted by something else. As we all know, today's technology architectures built on the past, reducing costs over time, and commoditizing things that once required huge budgets and thousands of man-hours to develop. Seed stage investors will be with us for a while, and the continued institutionalization of that segment will bring more order and structure and hopefully funding to our clients. Here within the HVCFI, we've always been strong advocates for increased access to seed funding. While much of this presentation is fueled by the venture capital industry, here in the Hudson Valley, we've not had the attention of most venture groups. Seed funding is the embryo from which our university-based and independent technologies are developed and commercialized, and now due in part to our relationship with the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering and NYSERDA, we're taking a bold step to provide a path to clean tech commercialization. For those of you who are here, who are at the threshold, I invite you to contact us and see how we might help you grow and flourish. We remain vocal for local and regional economic development organizations, chambers of commerce, working together with HVCFI and state officials to recognize the need and impact seed funding has on our community in terms of technology-based economic development, jobs, workforce growth, and establishing our region as one of the cornerstones of growth and economic development. So that's my presentation for you this morning. Okay. Questions? Real quick. Harv.
Can you give a thumbnail definition of micro VC?
I'm going to pass the question. Dick? I'm sorry to surprise you.
Dick Frederick, I'm in the process of actually raising an angel fund. A lot of what Les talked about this morning really hits home. A couple of very important points. One, there are 4 times as many jobs created by small startup, early emerging companies than there are by the large Two, in 2009, more money was invested by angels than by VCs and startup funds. Three, nationally the trend is towards high net worth people coming together to create angel investing groups rather than going to VCs. For two reasons. One, they want to get closer to their investments. They want to be able to work and mentor with these companies, which is one of the points that Les made that needs to be reinforced. It's not only about money. If you can't provide the support and services to help those companies grow, it won't happen. There's a lot of statistics that show us that. So right now, what we're trying to do in our region is create something called Eastern New York Angels. It is a seed fund. It's a managed fund, member-driven fund, and the intent is to fund companies throughout the Hudson Valley as well as through Tech Valley and early stage companies. So there's a lot of purpose here. I think that we're going to see more of this trending happening nationally. If you look at the statistics, you see that the venture funds are shrinking to a certain extent, and you're going to see more activity on the angel side as they continue to grow and have more success.
Thank you. I think that gives a pretty broad and comprehensive perspective on where we are. Moving along with the presentation, our sister agency company is the Hudson Valley Technology Development Center out of Fishkill. Tom Phillips, who's the executive director of HVTDC, and I are the founders of the Hudson Valley Center for Innovation. And here to give you a brief update on what TDC is into is Brian Rye.
Good morning. Back in the day, when I left the Giuliani administration after the first term, I actually started a company raising venture capital for internet startups. That was a go-go era, and it was so much easier. You know, it just was. You look back on that, and you realize people were throwing money, and just if it was a .com, you know the drill. It just was amazing. So things are a lot leaner, and I don't need to reiterate that. I think everybody in this room is probably infinitely aware of their situation and others. Coming here today, have you almost had a head-on collision driving your car? If you had one of those, pretty, you know, just like shocking out of the blue, bang. I pulled over, just really kind of nervous and thought, do I just go back? I don't know what to do. Or no, actually, let me just go on. Let me get here and speak to you all this morning. And I'm going to use that as a metaphor because that's where a lot of companies are right now. They're almost at a head-on collision. They don't know it. They have issues that are continuing. Tomorrow's the first day of fall. The summertime is past. The year is going by. What is it that's occurring in your company that just you can't get over? Or maybe you know somebody that's in business and industry where it's employee training, it's leaning out, it's green sustainability issues, it's certainly strategic planning, it's product development, redesign. I can go on. That's the commercial component of what we do. But I'd like to just point out that if there are some things that are annoying you, please give us a call. My cards are on the back table, so feel free to grab them. Let's have a conversation. Email me. Let's put you in touch. Let's try to find a solution. Let's do what we can do to assist you. Look at our website, which is, of course, hvtdc.org. Again, you'll see that on my cards over there. And let's see what we can do to assist. I want to point out one very interesting thing that we just learned in a meeting yesterday at the office. Is one of our staff members, Kristen DiClemente, who works on green sustainability in very comprehensive ways with our corporate clients, has on the side taken a great interest in developing an educational course for kids, for elementary age children. And she's had some success. She's done a presentation with a school, has a couple of other schools involved. It's a very interesting, in-depth course. So look at our website. If you know someone who might be interested in such a curriculum, her contact information is on the website, and it would be very worthwhile to give her a call and talk about it. But again, I won't take up any more time. By all means, grab a card, give me a call, email me, let's talk, and I look forward to speaking with each one of you. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm on. Whew. You know, this is how I stay so slim and svelte. I run around here like an idiot. This is great. I'd like to bring on stage Kevin Creamer. It looks like representing Net Zero. He's wearing a tie. This is worth a round of applause. Believe you me. Net Zero is a rising star company here in the Hudson Valley. They are involved in a very necessary and evolving niche in alternative energy, meaning the storage of energy. Recently, Net Zero, Kevin and Todd, raise your hand, Todd, presented at the New Energy Symposium down in Manhattan. And we're stacked against some pretty stiff national competition. And I think they did extraordinarily well for themselves. So here to tell you about Net Zero, to tell you about their products, their direction, and where they're going is Kevin Creamer.
I want you to imagine not paying for fossil fuels anymore. I want you to imagine not paying an oil bill or a gas bill or a propane bill. Most of us heat our house with fossil fuel or oil. What would it mean if you could save that monthly nut and put it in your pocket? With that said, we've developed a product called ThermoVault. It's a high energy density thermal device. To preface the rest of the slides, when you buy a gallon of oil, you are buying 140,000 BTUs. That 140,000 BTUs heats your house. 1 gallon equals 140,000 BTUs. We got into the solar business a few years ago. We started in 2007, and through that, by our other sister company, Sunshine Solar, we've been selling a lot of PV and solar thermal, the generic way you see it out there now. We take it, we put it on the roof, it generates electricity, and it offsets their bill. We've been moving PV since 2009, and we've been fairly successful at it. Knowing that we had a product like ThermoVault, and knowing that we're already working 80 hours a week with Sunshine Solar, we knew we had to put together a team. So we went out and we did that. And you can see by some of these names up here, we put together a world-class team. With the help of Steve Young, Les, and John, we've got a good team behind us. They've given us dividends already. They pointed us in the right direction. And thanks to Les and the HVCFI, they put us down in Manhattan, and that has been growing legs already. Good team behind this project. What is it? Let's remember one thing. All of us have one of those tanks in your basement. We all have one of those. One of those tanks holds 75,000 BTUs. All right? A gallon of oil will give you 140,000 BTUs. But one of those tanks will only hold 75,000 BTUs. So what does this say? It says that you could have 15 of these water tanks at 75,000 BTUs stored in 1 or 2 ThermoVaults. Okay? What does this mean? It is designed for the residential and small commercial. ThermoVault can feed all and satisfy all of your domestic hot water needs. ThermoVault could solve your space heating needs. ThermoVault can make your legacy system, the boiler that you have now, run more efficient. If you add solar thermal to ThermoVault, you are actually getting BTUs off the roof and storing it in ThermoVault. That one rack of tubes will give you 30,000 BTUs. If you had 10 racks on the roof, you would have 300,000 BTUs. Wrong presentation. You could also take thermal vault and make it scalable. You could take it and insert it in the foundation of your house. You could take it and make it portable. Store the heat, those BTUs, in thermal vault, 1,000,000 BTUs in one thermal vault. Take it from Arizona, move it to Montana, and use the heat up there. How does it do it? Thermal vault is not filled up with water. Thermal vault is filled up with what they call a phase change material. How does it work? Imagine that candle that you have on the dining room table. You light it, you see a big pool of wax, puddle, you blow out the flame, and that little pool of wax stays there. 5 minutes later, you stick your finger in it, it's still hot. Wax, or paraffin, is a phase change material. What is happening when it goes from solid to molten, it's absorbing heat. And then when you blow the flame out and it goes from molten back to solid, it's giving up the heat. So if you could take a solar thermal appliance like evacuated tubes and charge thermal vault with 1,000,000 BTUs, you just offset 10 gallons of oil. You could tell your oil guy, no delivery this month. I've got the BTUs off of the roof. We have some intellectual property here, and we also have a secret sauce. The PCM that goes inside ThermoVault is a trade secret. We're not going to publish it. We're not going to tell anybody what our formula is. We're going to do just like Coca-Cola. We're going to take our recipe and put it in a safe. We also have a patent application that is ready to be filed. Along with our secret sauce and our proprietary containment system, we think we have some good protections for the product. What are the owner benefits? If you take, this is your boiler, if you take ThermoVault with your boiler, you could reduce it by 20 to 30%. Let's take a scenario. You pay $2,500 a year for oil. If you install ThermoVault, you'll save 25% or $600 a month. If you take ThermoVault and your boiler and put it with solar thermal, you could save 40 to 50%. Same bill, now you're saving $1,100 a year. Same scenario, add some more solar thermal. Get some more BTUs off your roof for nothing, which will displace oil. You could save between 60 and 100% on your oil bill. You're paying $2,500 a year now at today's prices, by the way, because when it goes back up to $5 a gallon, remember what that will be. Say we're going to reduce it by 80%, we're saving $2,000 a year. It puts your entire scenario, your return on investment, within 4 to 5 years. A sizable PV photovoltaic investment will take 10, 15, maybe 20 years to pay for. A solar thermal, which will get rid of your oil bill to the tune of $200, $300 a month, is a much better investment. If you don't do anything, this is what's going to happen. You could see, if you do nothing, the price of oil is just going to keep going up. And you look at this all 25 years. Boy, that's a long time. As Sunshine Solar, we do a lot of service work on solar thermal systems that were installed 25, 30 years ago. They're still in operation. They're still paying dividends to their customers from the Carter years. If you do nothing today, you're going to pay this. If you put in ThermoVault with some solar thermal, you'll pretty much flatline it. This will be your savings. It comes out to some $55,000 over the course of the life of this product, or just save it monthly on your oil bill. Our go-to market, we're going to market to solar installers, dealers, manufacturers, and distributors. That is our sales force. It's a reason for them to sell more flat plates. It's a reason to sell more evacuated tubes. It's a reason to sell more heat pumps. Why? Because you could take all that heat that they generate and you can now store it. Prior to ThermoVault, you would have to have a swimming pool in your basement. Nobody wants that. Now, you just have something that could pretty much fit in your linen closet. and it will also store about 1.2 million BTUs. This is our core market that we're going after. We have traction. We are a member of TSEC. We're involved in the Fort Drum and the Ashokan project. We're involved heavily in a couple of PPAs, not out of New York, out of Massachusetts and New Jersey. We do have local installs already. We have a tenant house down in New Paltz. It's functioning perfectly. We actually go back to our office and we look it up on the computer because it reports to us online how the system is doing, and it's working marvelously. We also have some interest from major New England utility companies that are thinking about leasing or renting ThermoVault to their customers on a one-by-one basis. Why? So they can save gas, so they could save fossil fuels. So we have some good traction. Our market approach is simple. We want to crawl before we could walk. We're going to push our product in all of the trade magazines, from Home Power, Solar Power, Photon International, and a Web 2.10 marketing strategy. Again, our market, we want to sell to the installers and dealers. Then they go out and they find all their customers. Solar thermal is a bigger growing market than PV is in this country today. Like we said before, we're also involved in a lot of PPAs. Once the product is recognized and you could realize the payback from ThermoVault, every PPA across the country, when it rolls out across the country, will want this product to reduce fossil fuel consumption across the board. We have competition. One, water is competition. Number two, there's a competitor over in Germany by the name of PowerTank.de, which looks like, oops, wrong way. Which looks like this. They build it primarily for the industrial space. It is also a petroleum paraffin-based product, which is where ThermoVault is a much superior. You get a better bang for your buck. Right up here, you're only doing 4 times water, whereas ThermoVault is 10 times water. What does that mean? Instead of having that one tank at 75,000 BTUs, now the tank could hold 750,000 BTUs. Your normal house will use about 4 to 5 gallons a day of oil. 5 times 140,000, 900,000 BTUs. ThermoVault could hold 1 million BTUs. So stick the BTUs in there off of your roof and heat your house for nothing. Financial projections, we think they're fairly solid. Then the first group of numbers I would like you to look at is look at our production rates from year to year. This is daily production. So we're only looking to sell 2 to 3 a day from our entire network of dealers and installers. Our EBITDA numbers on the bottom look fairly strong. We go cash flow positive at month 19. Our depth of hole is 1.1 million, and that's in month 11. So we do make a pretty good turn up fairly quickly. Our projected return on investment at year 3 is 1.5 times X. At year 4, it's 3 times, and the return on investment at year 5 would be 5 times. So we feel that's a fairly strong financial projection for ThermoVault. Risks and mitigation. We understand customers have to know what they're buying. So we've got an education, and education happens to be the strongest thing we're going to have to push out there. Let people know we could get them off of fossil fuel. No one else is saying we could get you off of fossil fuel. Everyone is saying, yes, we could reduce your electric bill. Well, the bright light in the room is your cell phone and your cable bill costs more than your electric bill. To replace your fuel bill is going to take a lot of education. We understand we have supply interruption. We got redundant vendors. We have backup vendors, so on and so forth. And the big one, the big kahuna on the bottom, undercapitalization. We've been running the business for 2 years. We have some income from our other business, but in order to pull this off, we need a lot more money, and that's one of the risks. Right now, we're looking for $1.75 million. This is the use of funds, what we're going to do with it. Then we're also going to be looking for growth capital when this takes off in future years to come. To wrap up, ThermoVault is new. We want to get it out to the market. It's focused on the renewable energy sector. The funding needs have been identified. We have plans for the funds as we've laid out. An experienced management team has been put into place. ThermoVault, we feel, will be the new gold standard in the thermal storage and efficiency area. Thank you very much.
Questions? Go right ahead. Here you go. Take this.
Hi. How long do you think you can maintain your trade secrets in light of, reverse engineering and so forth and so on?
A couple of years.
Okay.
At the same time, our preface is there's about 8 million operators sold a year. There's about 5 million new boilers sold a year. When I show the projections, we're only looking to sell 3 to 5 units per day. That adds up to 20 to 25,000 a year as we grow out.
Okay.
The market being 10 million, we're not looking for a really big one.
The other question is, you also are pursuing some patents, I assume,
Yes.
and those obviously are not in conflict with your trade secret material.
No, we have a list of patents. We have the first one ready to go. Then we have other ones which we touched on. We're involved with RPI and Albany U with some nanotechnologies. We know that once we get this out, the prospective competitors are going to buy it and, like you said, reverse engineer it. Well, as soon as this goes out to the market, the very first thing we're going to do with some funding is take our secret sauce, implement a little nanotechnology by putting some, and get another patent, and then get another patent.
Easy, Kevin. The patent attorney's in the room.
I know. We know we're going to have to stay ahead of the curve, but we also know that we could continually improve our product in steps. So as a competition shows up and says, well, we can save you 80%, well, we'll be down the road. We'll still be a better product. But at the same time, there's a lot of refrigerators out there, but there's only one Sub-Zero refrigerator. We want to be the Sub-Zero refrigerator in this space. As competition comes in and helps us create the market, we want to be the Sub-Zero in this space.
There's also something to be said for first to market. We're establishing a new niche. We're establishing new territory, breaking new ground. The product that's out there with name recognition, brand recognition, a history of service, reliability, is going to have, or could have, the lion's share of the emerging market, and that's where we see this company. And there are changes, there are modifications, there are new products that will come as a subset. Everything is manufactured here. Bob?
What is your unit cost and what is your estimated payback against an oil-fired hot water heater?
Right now, our unit cost is about $69.95. Our payback would be between 4 and 5 years. That's just ThermoVault. When you start adding evacuated tubes or flat plates, your cost goes up, but your return on investment basically stays the same. 4 to 5 years, and you're out from under oil.
If you don't have the solar panels, how do you put the heat into the unit?
You necessarily don't. If you don't have solar panels, you're going to use it specifically as an energy booster. One of the issues with today's boilers, if you got a boiler within the last 5 years, say, oh, this is 98% efficient. It's only 98% efficient if it runs. A typical boiler that we have in our house today will cycle on and off about 20,000 times a year. It never stays on long enough to capture its maximum efficiency. With ThermoVault, when you turn your boiler on, it's going to stay on to capitalize on that 98% efficiency, storing the heat in ThermoVault. And then when you want heat for your house, it's not going to take the heat from your boiler. It's going to take the heat from ThermoVault. And since ThermoVault could hold 10 times the BTU capacity of water, the boiler might not ever go on. But at the same token, if you do put evacuated tubes or flat plates, every 12 hours the sun is going to recharge it and give you heat for your home.
Anybody have a question here?
Sure.
What are the terms of the preferred A?
Say it again?
What are the terms? What does the preferred A mean? You say you're issuing a preferred A? Oh, you say you're issuing a preferred A.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Don't know. You know, we would call it Series A, seed money, you know, it depends who we're talking to, what they want to call it. So since this is our first investor, you know, we're going to go by their term sheet, what they want to call it, how they want to structure it. We're open to that. Just like we're open up to any type of financial structure, we're open to it. We understand that potentially we might be able to, we might have to give away 95% of our company to fund this. But at the same time, in that term sheet, we might say, yeah, we'll give you 95%, but we want to buy it back based on milestones.
That's fair.
So there's a lot of ways we can do
Are you
it.
placing the value? What valuation are you placing on the business
What year?
now?
Right now, maybe we'll put a valuation of $3 to $5 million based on sales from Sunshine Solar, based on some of the orders we already have for Thermovault, which we've been shipping.
Any other questions? Ralph?
In line, correct. Good assumption. Good.
We-
You just put it right in line. Because if the sun doesn't keep up to heat your house, the boiler will kick in. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't believe this isn't going to work." I'll tell you what, leave all your old stuff there. We'll just take Thermovault and put it in line. And after 5 years, when it's collecting cobwebs, take it out and throw it out.
Kevin, last question back here.
Last question.
Kevin, where do you manufacture these? And is there any plan for China, Europe?
Right now, because of the risk mitigation model that we have here, we've got 2 vendors. Just in case one crashes and burns, we have a backup vendor. They are made in the United States, and some of them are made local. The closest vendor we have now is in Rhode Island, but we have multiple vendors. As far as China, we are talking to the Chinese about manufacturing this. It is not the #1 thing we'd want to do. If we could keep manufacturing in the Hudson Valley and build it here, we will for the right price. But yes, we've investigated all of that, and there's actually 2 people involved in importing and exporting from China and internationally.
Thank you.
You bet. Any more questions?
Good.
As I understand this, you could install it in a home right now
Yes.
without any solar panels.
Yes.
So that if you were looking at the expense side of it, you could implement it right
Yes.
before.
And you could anticipate a 20 to 30% reduction in your oil bill or gas
You're
bill.
up, kid.
And take those savings and call me back next year and say, Kevin, put some evacuated tubes. Save another year, call me back a year later, put some more on. Because what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years, oil is just going to work its way back up. You know, Europe is paying $6, $7, $8 a gallon for oil. It's coming, folks, whether we like it or not.
Good. Kevin, great job. Thank you so much. All right, now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker this morning, Marty Byrne. He's the Associate Director for the Center of Future Energy Systems from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. We've known Marty for a long time. He's worked on some of our projects with some of our companies, and we're thrilled to have him this morning. I think it's going to be an exciting presentation. Use the bottom button to go forward. Bottom button forward. Don't ask the logic. There is none. The laser pointer? The laser pointer is this button here.
Yeah, that's the last slide. Can we go back to the first slide, please?
One never knows.
No, not that way, please.
Not that way.
Go back. Can you go back? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So what do you got here?
You can push this one. Go to the, is that the next one or the
No,
last one?
that's the last one.
Okay, this bottom button to advance it. Okay, bottom button to advance it. The round button for the laser pointer. And you can use that mic or you can use the handheld, whichever you prefer. Good.
Good morning. My name is Marty Byrne. I'm with RPI Center for Future Energy Systems. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to have an opportunity to talk to you about renewable energy. And my premise today is that the time is now. The Center for Future Energy Systems is one of the NISTAR-funded CATs around the state, Centers for Advanced Technology. And we want to be, our specific focus is in a number of the renewable energy space here. All right, let's see. Okay, So again, we're the Center for Advanced Technology. Our main goal and objective is really to find and work with industrial partners around the state, facilitate the technology transfer, and when we can, we work with company partners to go out and try to find STTR or SBIR type funding opportunities. NISTAR has invested about $109 million in the various CATs around the states over the last 10 years, and the impact has been very positive, over $4 billion. And you can see here 5,000 jobs, about $1.6 billion in increased sales, and about $700 million in company cost savings. So these are pretty substantial results. Our center in particular, we focus on these technology areas. If you look at renewable energy, it's going to be in the wind, solar, thermal photovoltaic, solar thermal as well. It's nice to hear the thermal vault presentation and net zero. We also have a laboratory that works in fuel cell area. Electrodes, membranes, catalysts. We're doing some work, testing and characterization work. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Energy efficiency, smart lighting and displays, as well as buildings. And again, I'm going to go through some slides here a little later to give you that. On campus, we also won a $1 million award to do distributed energy testing, distributed energy resources and how it impacts the grid. So we have a simulated test bed on campus. And we also have some expertise in our electrical lab where we're doing phasor measurement units around the state and around New England. And last but not least is something new. We partnered with Syracuse and Stony Brook for the regional hub for New York Energy Policy Institute. And so we're coordinating and we'll be kicking that off at the Advanced Energy Conference in November. So these are some of the things we do. We work with Cornell as our partner. We share the funds from New York State with Cornell. But we've also reached out to Clarkson, Syracuse, Alfred over the years on CAT development projects. And we've done some work with both of those colleges. So again, my role really is to go out and try to get sponsored company research agreements with industrial partners. And if we can, do technology transfer and licensing as well from some of the intellectual property that we have on campus. And work with companies even on business plans. We worked with Ioxis out of Oneonta to put their business plan going back for supercaps. But I had the fun job, I guess, today of talking about renewables in a little bit different detail than I normally do. So that's really what I wanted to do today. And I want to go back and talk about three areas really. We're going to go through the renewable space and where some of the current technologies are and where they're going. We're going to talk a little bit about funding and where the opportunities are. But first of all, I guess I want people to think about a world without oil. And I don't know, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about that, I was kind of fooling around and said, Mad Max is one of these crazy guys. It talks about that movie, Social Collapse. It's based in Australia and how wild things got. The reason I bring this up is because it was a premise that came up on campus in our School of Management. And as such, I wanted to go back and research, well, what does a world without oil really mean? And when is that going to happen, potentially? So, as all good search engines are out there, you start with Google and you always goes to Wiki. And if you look up peak oil on Wiki, you'll get 196 references. And it's very interesting reading. And it was a sidebar for about 2 days. Luckily, my boss was out of town. But, if you look at this, a guy named Hubbard back in '56 put together, he was wondering about the U.S. mix of oil and what was going to run out. And then subsequently, it's been a global model. It's a base model. It's not specific, but, it shows, way back when, you had this first one was done in 1950, and you can see what their proven reserves and what their future discoveries and what they thought. And that peak is somewhere around Well, right about where we are right now. There's more recent work that's going on. This is a peak oil, by the way, is a definition is maximum rate of global oil production. Okay. This other curve is a depletion curve. This shows you when oil potentially is going to run out. And you can see that depending on where you are, who you are, if you're T-Boone Pickens, if you're the Saudi Aramco, if you're BP, BP is quoted in here quite extensively, and they do a really good job of putting together information. And there's another company in here, the Columbia Energy Research Association. So depending on your view, oil, if you're an optimist, 2020 with a maybe 100-year plateau. And we've already gone through 1.1 trillion barrels, and that there's probably 2 trillion barrels more out there to be had. And if you're a real optimist, you might even say 13 trillion. But that's really stretching everything. If you're a pessimist, you say it peaked already, there's a 3% oil decline, and that's on conventional oil. Now, conventional oil, what's conventional oil? Well, what it's not is oil shale, it's not oil sands, it's not biofuels. So all these would be additive to conventional oil. And again, CIRA has a pretty good optimism here. They say that we're, and I'll show you some slides, but 100 million barrels per day with 80 to 110 going through 2030. And YTF is yet to find resources. So they're basing it on some optimism, obviously. There's another study that the government did back in 2005, the Hirsch report. The Hirsch report's interesting from the standpoint that it talks, and I'll just summarize real quickly here, that it's going to happen within a decade, that the economies are going to be very impactful, especially in the United States, that it better not be abrupt because that could be a revolutionary kind of problem, an issue, and that we need to find fuels for transportation and large amounts of substitute fuels for transportation. So renewable energy, time is now. Right now, the U.S. consumes about 18.7 million barrels per day. The number to remember is about 286 billion gallons per year. That's going to be important later. If we say that 2/3 of that, or about 190 million gallons, is oil, or I should say is gas and diesel, and probably 150 billion is the gas part of it. Keep those numbers in mind. But again, you know, fossil fuels are exhaustible, and we haven't even talked about the climate change impact yet. So what's happening out there? Well, here's the U.S., and this is, again, 2009 top global users of oil. And over here we have China, 8.6. China had the capacity to build 5 million cars going back to 2005. Anybody want to guess on what their capacity is today? 13 million cars. So in 5 years, they've almost tripled their production of automobiles. So the projection is that this circle over here is going to be something like that in pretty short order, and with plans to continue production of automobiles, granted smaller automobiles. The same is true of India, which is right here. So at 3 million barrels per day, that's going to rise substantially. Interestingly, our projection for the United States is going to go down. Probably in 2030, it'll be down 30 to 40%. So that's pretty amazing. We've had the recent incident out in the Gulf that everybody is well aware of. So that generated about 140 million gallons, about 6 hours of usage here in the States. But you know, had a tremendous impact and got a lot of people out there really touting conservative views on oil production. And of course, we all remember the Exxon Valdez. So that was about 1/10 of the size of the spill that we had in the Gulf. Why renewable energy sources? Every time we get a hiccup, and we know this from the OPEC oil embargo or the Iraq-Iran war, we get these major spikes, and of course they correlate with the price of a barrel. So price sensitivity is a very important issue when it comes to our supply and demand situation. And then the last but not least is the global climate impact. And you know, we've talked about fossil fuels. 81% of our energy is derived from fossil fuels. So that's coal and oil, the major players. And you can see that, and these numbers are a little light, I think. This is going back to 2000. But, you know, we're talking about cumulative 9 billion tons of CO2 per year. So, just to recap a little bit, so U.S. petroleum, about 69% of that goes to convert to gasoline and diesel. U.S., we long ago went through our maximum, but there's certainly now some new renewed interests out in Colorado, what they call the oil shale deposits, 1 trillion barrels. We also import about 3 million barrels from Canada. I've been up to the oil sands in the Athabasca region of Canada. It's pretty amazing to watch them mine oil, and it's a pretty efficient operation. And they can do it and make a lot of money when the price of a barrel of oil is $50 to $60. The other thing about oil, too, is that the U.S. refining capacity is about 90%. So I've got a lot of slides here to get through. The whole idea of the petrochemical side of this, the 30%, what we do, you know, my polyester suit I wouldn't be wearing, all the plastic cups, the styrene, the aromatics, all your base polymers, plastics, your fibers. So all those supply chains have to be figured out in a world without oil. Let's just talk real quickly about electrical capacity. Right now, the way in the U.S., we have coal representing 49% of our mix. If you look in New York State, it's only 14%, just for curiosity. Nuclear is 19%, and in New York State, again, we're blessed with or I should say a higher level, 29%. Hydro, 7% on a U.S. basis, 17% on a New York State basis. We're higher on petroleum than most, though. So 2% U.S.-wise, New York State about 16%. So that petroleum is another potential area that we're going to have to make up for electrical energy production. I have this in here just to explain to some of the rookies, you know, what a gigawatt and a watt, and but just to let you know, the key ones here are like our largest building on campus draws about 800,000 watts, almost a megawatt. And if you take the bridge or the dams out at Niagara Falls, there's 5 of them. They produce about 5 gigawatts of energy. And in the U.S., we need about a terawatt. So right up on top, 1.1 terawatts is the amount of energy that we need. Okay? That electrical energy, I think if we look at residential consumption, is a major part, 38%. And we're glad Thermal Vault is working on the HVAC part of that. So that we can reduce our energy usage there, 31%, so that's a major part. Another major part that is undergoing a substantial change is lighting. If we look at the commercial sector, you can see lighting is a big component of it. 38% of our electrical energy goes into that, and 30% into heating, ventilating, air conditioning. So these are important sectors for us to take a look at and come up with building efficiency models and really work hard at improving our overall efficiency. I want to turn to the Obama-Biden energy vision. You know, and I think President Obama has really done a really good job of putting together a commitment to renewable energy resources. He's taken the charge and the lead. He's looking at 10% by 2012. We're well underway to make that. If you remember the other numbers, we had 6 in hydro, 2 in renewables, so we need 2 more, and I'll show you where we're going to get them. And 25% by 2025, I think that's doable if we keep up at the same rates that I'm going to show you on some of our wind and PV and where we're moving. The big number here, 60 billion gallons in biofuels. So if you remember what we saw, we said 150 billion gallons roughly is what we need to drive around. So between ethanol and biodiesel, you know, this is a significant chunk. This is how we're going to reduce our needs for petrochemicals. The other aggressive goal is 1 million plug-in vehicles by 2015 and increased flex fuel mandates. Again, right now, one of the things that's hung up in Congress is the $1 tax on biodiesel. And the other thing is the mandate for ethanol blends. It's capped at 10%. And they're trying to get that to 15, and then that'll gradually go higher and higher. Improves electrical grid. He spent, moving forward here. Energy efficiency in buildings. He's allocated about $10 billion in that sector, about 4.6 in improving the electrical grid, another important segment. $4 billion in CO2 capture and sequestration. If we're going to have coal, which is about a 250-year supply, we're going to need to do it in a clean way if we're going to move forward here in the future. And so we'll have coal to liquid technologies as well as clean coal technologies have to be demonstrated. Commitment to nuclear. Again, in the federal program right now, the Gen 2 reactors that are out there, you know, they've been around a long time. The Gen 3 is pretty much going for reliability and performance. But the Gen 4 will actually take, and we only get about 5% utilization out of a core. And the Gen 4 reactors will be high temperature reactors. They'll get somewhere around 90% utilization. So if you think about the deposits going out into, you know, that we want to bury into the ground, we can actually take some of those and reuse them. So these are technologies that are still 20 years away. Cap and trade, again, trying to take $150 billion, and this one's hung up in Congress as well. But the idea was that you'd have $10 billion you can reinvest over that 10-year period. And again, it'll be interesting to see how Congress, in this partisan, this is, I think, a partisan area. I think both the Democrats and Republicans want to move forward, see the light. And if you actually go, well, I guess I got ahead. On a global basis, so this is the United States, right? So on a global basis, though, we have world demand on energy increasing about 40% by 2030. And if we look, 90% of that growth is going to come from China and India, okay? I shouldn't say 90%. 90% of the growth is going to come from non-OECD countries. 53% of that is China and India. And you can see that oil is supposed to rise to 105 million barrels a day, coal 53%, gas 42%, and coal moves to a higher percentage as well as renewable energy. But on a global basis, that seems like a pretty weak number. And if you look at these numbers, you can see that the OECD countries, and then basically that's the United States, Canada, the big ones are in there, the UK, France, Japan, you know, we're doing a pretty good job of keeping our climate related carbon dioxide emissions in control. But there's going to be some issues here that we're going to have to address on a global basis. All right, so wind. Let's just turn real quick. Don't want to keep you guys more than another 15 minutes here, but global wind power has made a real significant ramp up. If you go back to the beginning of the decade here, you can see we were at about 24 gigawatts and pretty much has doubled 3 years, every 3 years after that. So 47, going up to 93, 159 last year, and with plans to go up to over 200 gigawatts. That's on global production, okay? So it seems like we've got it there. The U.S. is up to 35 gigawatts of production at this point. We've got a couple of major projects into play, offshore wind projects that hopefully the New York Power Authority and the current administration can get approvals to move forward, both in Long Island and on the Great Lakes projects. And of course, there was one that is kind of the showcase one was on Cape Cod, and that offshore project has just gotten approval to move forward as well. So I think we're going to see some increases in offshore wind. The issue with this, of course, is it's intermittent power. As an intermittent power source, you have to have other resources ready to come online at very quickly. And you have to have potentially some battery storage capabilities as well. So predictability is a real key to large-scale wind integration. The International Energy Agency estimates that if we are going to pursue big wind projects that be additional $1.8 billion in T&D, transmission and distribution expenses, will be needed by 2030. And again, some amazing statistics last year. You know, the United States was great, 39% growth. Look at China, 100% growth. Okay, so they are getting the message as well. On a U.S. wind power basis, you can see that U.S. growth, 2.5 gigawatts up to 35, 2% of U.S. generation. An interesting number is 39% of the new generation that the U.S. put in last year was wind power. And the goal is here to get to 20% by 2030. Texas, of course, leads with 9. New York is down here about at 1.3. We had a wind energy forum on campus about 3 months ago. We came up with a whole bunch of issues of what additional technology areas needed to be addressed. And so these are things that we'll be working on and thinking about going down the road. If you look at some of the largest wind turbines farms or wind farms in the country, you think about this Roscoe wind farm in Texas, 781 megawatts, 627 wind turbines, okay? Size of Manhattan. You know, these are very, very large wind facilities. And there's a group now in Norway that is developing the largest wind turbine, 10 megawatt. And if you look at this cost, that would translate to about $6,700 per kilowatt. And you know, normal onshore is about maybe $2,500 per kilowatt. Offshore might be somewhere around $4,000 per kilowatt. But then this is just a test. You know, the idea is if you could have only 78 of these instead of 627, of course you've got all kinds of potential savings in maintenance and operation and how you would run the wind farm. So we'll see how that experiment goes. Manufacturers, we don't need to go through these other than to say that GE is a big part, and the only one listed on the page in the top 10. Other U.S. players: Clipper Wind Power, Northern Power, Southwest Wind Power is, you know, some of the big guys. So, what about the small wind market under 100 kilowatt? What are we doing there? Well, that's an area that's growing like gangbusters as well. And I know Steve is interested in that, but 78% growth, installed about 17 megawatts. So you can see the scale, big time difference, but it is, you got to start somewhere. There's been a 30-fold growth expected by 2013, maybe get up to almost 2 gigawatts. And the good news here are good news. The entrepreneurial good news, I guess, is 110 U.S. manufacturers, about 50% are located here in the U.S. And Congress has an investment tax credit so that there's an opportunity to take some of these technologies and move forward. If you want to see a list, allsmallwindturbines.com will give you about 60 pages of wind turbines and the various manufacturers that are out there. We do some work in the wind area on campus, helping advanced vertical axis wind turbines, improving design and output, looking at synthetic jets for large turbine blades, and small wind power conversions. So those are some of the projects we have on campus. Let's turn our attention to PV. We have a lot of ex-semiconductor people in the room, so they know a lot about the PV industry. Certainly you start with those same kinds of materials. And you know, you're converting, alternating, and just to make sure people understand, when you generate PV systems, you are generating a direct current, so you have to have inverters, and inverters will turn that current back to AC to put it on the grid. PV global installations, again, nice ramp-up curve here, and again, the U.S., we'll talk about the U.S. here, but in this color. So this is, again, an area that installations up to 22 gigawatts. So again, if we look at it compared to wind, you know, wind is expected to top 200 gigawatts next year, or this year. Again, the leaders, Germany, Spain, the USA, about 2.2 gigawatts. Global annual production is up to around 7. So that's a 52% increase in 1 year. And again, most of this grid is grid connected, so not a lot of residential power, commercial lighting, you know, off the grid type applications. Let's see, the major, one of the major things going on in PV is that the global thin film solar market is expanding rapidly. It's already up to 19% market share. So thin film, and I know the monocrystalline and polycrystalline guys, you know, they have a very good record. They've been out there a long time, and they're working very hard on their cost parity as well. And I think they'll be a player for a long time as well. But thin film does have its mark. Don't need to go through all these per se, but the leaders statewide, you know, California obviously is leading the show here, and if you're real interested, you can go into NREL and you can look at all the theoretical conversion efficiencies of all the different technologies. And again, the main one you're going to see on housing installations are multicrystalline silica cells and thin film, either CAD telluride or SIGs. Okay, those are the three major technologies that are really making the marketplace. Okay. As far as producers, again, from a U.S. standpoint, solar thin film manufacturers, you can see First Solar is one of the majors, and they just announced last week that they've got their modular cost down to 76 cents a watt. That's pretty major. And they've got 1.4 gigawatts of total capacity right now, and some of that's in Ohio. Global Solar is the other one. There's SIGs, 11.7% conversion rate, 75 megawatt plant in Arizona. And then Prime Star, which is the GE partner, CAD Telluride, they're in Colorado. And again, you know, this is cost parity and overall fully loaded module cost. One of the key things that investors look at going down the road. Just a real quick, I think one of the real interesting areas in solar is concentrating solar. US is the world leader at 435 megawatts. That picture there, those are guys on this parabolic trough type system. Basically what they do is they focus the light energy on this rod going down the middle, which is filled with an oil. That oil runs out to a steam generator. In this case, it's these are just solar concentrators heating up this area here, which is filled with molten salt. That molten salt will go to a steam generator as well. One of the advantages of this system is that temperature is up around 600 degrees. It can stay there, so when the sun goes down, you still got energy. You can still be producing electricity. And I won't bore you with a lot, but there's been a lot of smaller projects, but there are some huge projects that are on the board, and both in CSP and PV for the next couple of years. You know, 23 gigawatts just out in the west. Some of the work that we do at RPI, again, we've got some professors interested in full spectrum solar cells, also tracking, quantum dot, and biaxial superconductor technology to lay thin films on different substrates. I wanted to quickly talk about ethanol, biodiesel, bioplastics. There was a real good project down in Tennessee, DuPont, to try to make propane diol from corn. They've got a $100 million investment. So again, trying to get these basic building blocks so that we can have our polymers coming down the road. And again, that's going to be coming from corn stock. There's also projects on pyrolysis liquids to get petroleum feedstock and synthesis gas. If you look at the DOE, they're spending money they're spending a lot of money in this area, $600 million for biorefinery projects in 2009. Why on ethanol? Again, right now it's mandated up to 10%. We need some legislative help to get that higher. And they're holding back, the EPA is holding back on a 15% increase, and you know, they're trying to figure that one out. There's also a lot of different joint ventures going on out there for the VC guys in the audience. And Shell just hooked up with a company in Brazil to produce ethanol. And if you look, Valero just purchased 10 plants here in the U.S. for $750 million. So, there's a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of new technologies. Right now, there's 200 plus plants. They're all using pretty similar technologies, but the first cellulosic ethanol plant is maybe coming on in the next year. And then you've got switchgrass, which is another possibility, which is 5 times more efficient. So stay tuned on ethanol. Oh, what did I say? The production last year was 11 billion gallons. So if you remember from the beginning slide, we talked about that representing maybe 6-7% of the needs on a 10% ratio. Biodiesel is another key area. Again, soybean oil is really 80% of the feedstock for biodiesel. About 2 billion gallons of capacity, 110 U.S. plants. They're not quite up to at the same speed though. And there's also issues in Congress about how to incentivize the biodiesel fuel market. There's a number of companies that are very interested in this area. And if you look, Exxon spent $600 million with synthetic genomics to move forward on algae biodiesel. So that's another very potential great area of investment. U.S. installed capacity, U.S. hydroelectric. I didn't realize when I went through, I was preparing this for another talk, but the Grand Coulee Dam is the 5th largest in the world. The next one that the U.S. has is the 22nd largest in the world. So hydroelectric is a huge electrical resource worldwide. And in the U.S., it employs about 300,000 people. And surprisingly, when you look at the International Energy Agency report, it doesn't show much growth in this area. But the people at National Hydropower think that there's growth potential from 23 to 60 gigawatts. So, and that's just in the U.S. It is also the #1 pump storage. So if you're looking at battery storage technologies, pumped hydro is actually the #1 reserve electrical power in the U.S. Building efficiency, a lot of work going here. Anna Dyson was the keynote, at the Solar Energy lunch forum a few months back in the spring. And she's doing a lot of work in the wind solar environment. And they're looking at integrated building wind, integrated building solar, indoor air, and water purification systems. She also has a curtain wall out in the marketplace. That is a 8x10 curtain wall that can generate both electricity by optics. She concentrates the sunlight to a triple junction solar cell to create electrical energy, and then can also have passive solar water heating system here as well. This just got put into the Syracuse Center of Excellence new building that they dedicated in the winter. So they'll be ramping up and doing performance studies on that particular module. And the game plan would be hopefully to turn it into something that can go into many different types of buildings. At RPI, we're doing a lot of work in integrated systems research, whether it's combined heat and power, distributed energy, intelligent controls, lighting, energy storage. So again, a lot of different technologies that we're working on campus. And in the material side, which is another one of our strengths, if you look at crystalline solar cells, thermochromic powders, thermoelectric conversion, all technologies that will be interesting in the future for energy. Solid state lighting, another area. We just had somebody on campus. They're talking about an increase here of, I think, moving this to a $13 billion market by 2015. And basically 25% of all electrical energy is used for lighting. So again, another major area. We have the Lighting Research Center on campus doing work. We have our building in the where I have sitting with new LED lights, and so we're running some tests on those as well. And the lighting research looking at DC power grid for building interiors. So actually taking that, your standard lighting is AC, of course, and we're looking at ways to put modules in place for lighting. Okay. We also recently just got the smart lighting research. There's additional work. There's fuel cell work going on campus. For those in the group, understand that, you know, basically in a fuel cell, you're taking fuel, hydrogen, you're coming into an anode with a proton exchange membrane. You get electricity flowing in one direction, protons go through and combine with oxygen. Out comes water, heat, and of course, you've got to have this very expensive platinum catalyst to make this all happen. It can drive cars, it can drive airplanes, but it's a technology that's a ways away. Stationary market is one major market with less headaches, but auxiliary power units up to, say, 50 megawatts, and UTC and fuel cell energy out of Connecticut are probably the two powerhouses in that area. The mobile market's been played. There's been a lot of work and effort going on in the mobile market, but just recently, Secretary Chu cut off funding in this area, so, and then reinstated it. So we'll see how that's how that all plays out down the road. The technologies, again, that you'll hear most talked about are proton exchange membrane and solid oxide fuel cell. The top two, we do work in all these areas as well, in those two areas. So polymers, electrodes, materials, and controls. We have a fuel cell lab, and Dan Lewis is one of our guys there, who's doing some work. Fuel cell obstacles, I already mentioned. One is just the ability to get these assemblies out there with good life. And you can see you got 2.5 as much energy to build fuel cell as will be derived from its service life. Don't know if that's really the case. I haven't had a chance to research that. But right now, fuel cell cost is very expensive. You know, you've got $100,000 just for your fuel cell in a car. So for now, that's going to probably take some time to figure out, and we may be a decade or two away from that technology. On the material side, I don't want to take up too much time, but we have a lot of expertise in technology. We're doing work in distributed generation as well. We have this test campus, test bed simulator on campus, and it's looking at how distributed generation would impact a full grid, and what the impacts would be on loads, on sources, the interplay between the two, how to stabilize the voltage. And again, this is in our High Bay area in Johnson, so we're doing some of this work there with solar, fuel cell, and a wind generator. We'll also put on battery storage here at some point down the road. I thought I'd just finish up with clean tech venture funding, since that was a topic earlier, but this market is about $162 billion last year. China outspent us by almost 2 to 1. Last mentioned Tesla, $704 million IPO VC money that happened just recently. And if you look at the, where did I get this from? VC investments in green industry. Oh, it was CB Insights. But renewable energy is a big part of the portfolio. If you look at where the government's spending their money, these are the types of technologies: building efficiency, storage, carbon capture, direct solar cells, and down the road, electrical energy storage, grid scale, building efficiency. So that's where the government seems to be interested in. And if you look at the hubs that they're putting in the United States, and these are major investments, $125 million. First three, fuels from sunlight, operational simulation of nuclear reactors. Again, important because it can take you 7 years to run an experiment. And so these modeling and operational simulations are really going to enhance the capabilities to move that technology forward. And then energy efficiency in buildings. The next big one that's coming is storage, and we think smart grid, and that should be out next year. So I've taken up a lot of your time, but again, we're interested in company-sponsored research. We can bring expertise to bear and look to work with anybody in the room for collaborative research agreements. I appreciate your time, and have a great day. Thanks. I need to go too long.
Does he know a lot of stuff or what? Marty's going to hang around for a little bit if anybody wants to ask any questions or identify one of the points of interest in any one of the slides. He's got all the information. Thank you all for being here this morning. We ran a little over. We started a little late, but that's showbiz. I hope you all enjoyed it. Come back next month. We have a great speaker lined up, another company presentation, and have a very productive day. Thank you all. Mm-hmm.